Madam Speaker, I want to thank you so much. And I would like to thank the committee for a well-elaborated report presented. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, we do concur with all the issues that have been raised in the report. And I would also like to thank colleagues for emphasizing in concurrence with the report contains. I would like to highlight a few areas, Madam Speaker, that number one, on the issue of foreign policy, I think Uganda is one of the countries which have an entrenched foreign policy position in the Constitution, contained objectives and direct principles of state policy, objective number 28. And thereafter, subsequently, we've made remarkable progress in trying draft 1. But as colleagues may be aware, the ministry does a function delegated by His Excellency the President, who is the chief diplomat in any case, and we did forward the foreign policy proposal to him for clearance and onward transmission to Parliament. In a recent meeting, Madam Speaker, because of the global fluidity that we have of global affairs, we've been advised that Uganda may not come out very, very fast to coin out a steadfast written foreign policy, but continues to deliver our foreign policy in the ministerial policy statements as contained thereunder. Madam Speaker, we shall continue to wait for the advice of the chief diplomat in that regard. Madam Speaker, permit me also to mention on the issues of areas to international obligations. Indeed, I want to confess to this House that I think Uganda quite often has looked ugly in respect to meeting obligations, especially assessed contributions to international organizations to which we subscribe. First of all, in respect of our foreign policy, as contained in the Constitution, we are supposed to respect international obligations such as treaties and agreements, which we are part. And therefore, part of the respect is actually meeting the assessed contributions. So quite often, we've not looked very well. I'll give you the clarification later. We haven't looked very well.
Clarification.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and thank you, Madam Speaker. The clarification I am seeking arises from your statement that the President is the chief diplomat. We have seen the President sending his son to Rwanda when new ministers are there. His son threatening to invade and overrun Kenya, and the President was calling the President of Kenya to apologize. His son saying that he now supports Tigris who are fighting with Ethiopia, and your embassy staff are summoned by Ethiopia. Later, the Minister J. Odongo goes there. So the clarification I am seeking is whether the family of the President also shares in this responsibility. And who do you contact? For example, when the son says, I'm going to raid Kenya, do you contact the son or the father? You people who are, because when the son caused problems with Ethiopia, they summoned the embassy staff. So clarification, who do you call when there are problems? Or daughters?
I would actually be surprised if we finished before you mentioning the name of President Museveni. Can we conclude on the issue of subscription? because that takes a first call.
Madam Chair, permit me proceed from where I was. I was submitting that we need to up our game in respect of payments to international organizations to which we subscribe. I have seen in the report a proposal that the volume of 41.8 billion be transferred from Ministry of Foreign Affairs to Ministry of Finance. I think doesn't cure the problem. The problem is commitment to pay arrears. Whether under Ministry of Foreign Affairs or under Ministry of Finance, it is still arrears to a country called Uganda. Madam Speaker, I know we have a commitment not to come up with supplementary budgets. Our annual requirement for assessed contributions as subscription amounts to 25.54 billion Uganda shillings. What is provided for is 6.139 billion, leaving a shortfall of 19. That automatically calls for supplementary, because these are international organizations to which you subscribe by treaties to which you have subscribed. It's therefore mandatory. It's therefore my appeal that Parliament supports that position, that we get that shortfall funded. Now, let me also go to issues of our heads of missions failing to travel and present credentials to some of the countries to which they are accredited. Yes, indeed, this has been a usual occurrence. Why? Because of the suspension of travel, of the budget for travel abroad. Madam Speaker, permit me make this clarity. I think some people, when they read the word travel abroad as contained in our proposal, they attach this travel abroad by ministry officials and us ministers. Remember, our ministerial policy statements contains Vote 006, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, plus Vote 501 to Vote 538, missions abroad. And therefore, when we talk about travel abroad, it includes missions abroad, among others, to permit for heads of missions accredited to multilateral stations to present credentials in those other countries where they are accredited, apart from the sitting station, but also to perform consular and diplomatic functions to which they are called to play. It's therefore important that this Parliament supports restoration of budget of Ministry of Foreign Affairs for travel abroad. Madam Speaker, it also goes to the matter raised earlier on by one honorable colleague, where it has been observed that we do not classify and reclassify these ministries, these missions abroad. This equally calls for travel abroad to do annual and sub-annual inspection. Without this travel abroad, we may not know what is obtaining in missions. And as you're aware, the world is very dynamic, the geopolitics is very dynamic. We need the inspectors to travel abroad to go and assess and therefore inform the standing of the mission at that point in time. Indeed, we do have a number of deficiencies in our structures. For example, our structure in Trafalgar Square is not very pleasant. Our structure in Ottawa, Madam Speaker, is true, some of the structures have been condemned by the host governments. To that extent, we look ugly, and therefore we need money to do rehabilitation and repairs and or do fresh construction where possible. We also have some pieces of land allocated by some host governments, and when they allocate you, they give you a period of time within which you have to develop.
Honorable Minister, can you bring for us a list of the lands, the houses, all of that documented.
Most of will do that. And on the issue of issuance of passports, Madam Speaker, it's true previously our 3 missions in London, Washington, and Pretoria had been permitted to issue passports. However, due to funding shortage, that role has been recalled. We'd also like to pray that funds be availed to support the budget for issuance of passports, because this is a right given to citizens of Uganda, both within and outside.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. You talked about the structures and the missions in Canada, Ottawa, but I want to bring information to you that those structures have attracted taxes to the government of Canada. Are you aware of that? So if yes, include that in your report for your submission. I thank you.
Madam Speaker, the issue as highlighted by the Honorable is already contained in the report.
Honorable members, take your time to read this report.
Yeah.
It's a very exhaustive report.
Yeah.
And clerk, I want you to upload the report. The minister will not be able to answer all the questions that have been brought here. Yes.
Madam Speaker, in respect to ECD, commercial and economic diplomacy, we take the observation made by the committee. However, we beg to differ with the recommendation of the committee to the effect that all missions be availed with the funds to enhance commercial and economic diplomacy. While interfacing with the committee, I did mention this to the committee. The ministry does assessment and we invest money in commercial and economic diplomacy where we have returns or where we expect returns. We may not recommend to provide for budget to a destination such as South Sudan, such as Burundi, for tourism, as against Geneva, Brussels, and Washington. So we do it out of scientific research where we get returns. In terms of trade, yes, we may allocate to South Sudan and not allocate to other countries, which I don't want to mention here. So it should not be that we allocate to all missions. Madam Speaker, a few observations which were made by the Shadow Minister. Yes, the other one was about the foreign policy, which I have already answered. The strategy, if you look through the National Development Plan, followed by our own ministerial policy statement, which we submitted, we do provide for strategies, policies and strategies on how to mobilize diaspora. And diaspora is provided for 3 things. 1, foreign direct investment. 2, investment of receipts from outside, earnings from the diaspora, but also for purposes of solidarity and cohesion of members abroad, of Ugandans abroad. Now, about MOUs and bilateral agreements not enforceable. Madam Speaker, this appeared to be extremely broad and sweeping, which I would like maybe if you can give me a precise report about which agreement is not enforceable from which country. Otherwise, as to us, I'm only responding to what you said. Madam Speaker, as far as we are concerned as the country.
Can we have the MOUs that are not recognized brought on the floor so that the minister can be able to say?
Right Honorable Speaker, I wanted to give the minister information on two issues. One, on diaspora engagement, he's talking about a strategy. But as it is now, our foreign missions have no guidance.
Which MOUs are not enforceable
Honorable Speaker,
that have been
when it comes to the MOU, the one for United Arab Emirates, that is popularly known as Dubai by the public, is not enforced. And we need to understand how far. Last time we had the Minister of Gender waving to the public another new MOU, I think, with Qatar. We don't know what is even the content. And I hear even Jordan. So we need the clarity on these MOUs and what is the arrangement for their enforcement. If it requires a budget, we plan for it and budget for it.
I hope you're not mixing the MOUs for the employment of those people going abroad vis-a-vis. Can we have a clarification?
Madam Speaker, the relationship of nations are corresponded to through the normal diplomatic channels. When we enter an MOU, an agreement between nations, if there are areas of discontent or contention whatsoever, they are responded to formally. And to this extent, Uganda has not received any complaint whatsoever from government of UAE to the effect of failure to enforce any of the agreements, unless laid on table and unless it comes through us, through the normal diplomatic channels, then we shall respond.
Honorable Minister, what about an issue of where the ambassador of Russia is equally the ambassador of Ukraine?
Madam Speaker, I wanted to come to that. But let me respond to that after dealing with one of the Honorable Nsereko. The Honorable Nsereko was inquiring as to whether Uganda has made her position clear on issues of Palestine and issues as emerging issues which arise. Madam Speaker, this year, January 2024, Uganda hosted two very important conferences. One was the Conference on Non-Aligned Movement, to which Uganda assumed the chair and is going to be chair for 3 years. During that meeting, a number of deliberations were done and a document known as the Kampala Outcome Document was produced. In that document, Madam Speaker, a very precise and clear position on the question of Palestine was professed, and that is Uganda's position. I would like members to look at the Kampala Outcome Document.
Which conferences were there now?
This is NAM. Then secondly, we had the G77 plus China. And Madam Speaker, the theme for the NAM conference.
Those are the three?
There were two.
There were two.
Yeah.
So you don't consider the one that was hosted by Parliament as a Ugandan activity?
Madam Speaker, I was responding in respect of those under foreign affairs, but we do consider the one which was hosted by Parliament very dearly. But I was only talking about the other two in context.
That is still under foreign affairs.
We applaud Parliament for hosting the Speakers' Conference in Moyonyo as well, and we take pride in it. Madam Speaker, the theme for the NAM conference was deepening cooperation of partner states for shared global affluence. And I wanted to respond to the Honorable Nsereko, who asked this question. That alone means we need to deepen our engagement with the South countries. And therefore it means we have to involve ourselves in terms of even investing in missions in those countries, so as to further the commercial and economic diplomacy. And that's where we shall deepen global affluence or strengthen the sharing of global wealth. Now, the issue of having the ambassador of Russia, Uganda as a representative in Russia, as at the same time being a representative to Ukraine, Madam Speaker, it doesn't have any harm whatsoever because number one, Uganda is not concerned about the quarrels between the two nations in question because to even emphasize on that, we are members of non-aligned movement. Therefore, we don't poke our nose in the affairs of any of those two countries, but also provide for under the Vienna Convention of 1969 on diplomatic relations. There is no law whatsoever violated. If you have a representative of in one nation also representing in another nation where these two nations do not have diplomatic ties. It's therefore right.
Rice.
Finally, on the issue of
Can you summarize?
On the issue of representation vehicles, Madam Speaker and colleagues, we all travel abroad and we all love to be given courtesies. And many times we have gone abroad and been received in a manner that is worth what we have provided. But we have also seen in this country where we have delegations coming in and received by their missions accredited to Uganda. I think a difference is quite loud sounding. I therefore want to implore this House to enhance the budget of Ministry of Foreign Affairs to cater for those critical areas, particularly which touch the image of our country through missions abroad, including capital or development expenditure to care for our dilapidated structures. And then the last on that is about statutory obligations to host countries. Indeed, it's true, Madam Speaker, we are obliged to pay local taxes to host countries where we have property. Now, in Ottawa and Kinshasa, we are heavily indebted, and the host countries have already given us notice to the effect that our buildings may be auctioned. It's therefore important that we, and I'm glad Madam Speaker, the other day you guided, I think it was yesterday, that we do look at the other day, that we do look at amending the PFM 2015, whereupon we request that during that amendment, we should have sectors which contribute to the national treasury, but have certain obligations, be permitted to remit after deduction of certain obligations. That's what we call profit after tax and interest. Thank you very much.
The NTRs. Thank you so much, honorable members. I now put a question that the report of the Committee of Foreign Affairs on Ministerial Policy Statement and the budget estimates for financial year 2024-2025 be adopted by this House. Those in favor say on the contrary, nay. Yes, I have it. But all the issues that have been raised on the ministerial statement, Mr. Honorable Minister, all the issues that have been raised must be handled. Let it not just be for the sake. Agriculture.
The Committee on Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries.
And this report is referred to Committee on Budget, furtherance to Rule 149(2) of the Rules of Procedure. Agriculture, I'm giving you 15 minutes.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the report of the Committee on Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries on the Ministerial Policy Statement and Budget Estimates for financial year 2024-2025. I beg to lay. In the same vein, I beg to lay the minutes of the meetings while the committee was considering the ministerial policy statement. I beg to lay. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, I now beg to present the report of the Committee on Agriculture on the ministerial policy statement and budget estimates for the financial year 2024-2025. With your guidance, Right Honorable Speaker, I will just try to make the summary within the time you have allocated. Right Honorable Speaker, agriculture remains the mainstay of Uganda's economy. Actually, it is the backbone and the heart of the economy. But much as it is so, while looking at the estimates that have been given, there is limited allocation to the program on agro-industrialization. And this impacts negatively on the activities of the program. And based on the importance and the recent developments, agricultural sector requires an affirmative action to support socioeconomic transformation agenda and also support the PDM and improve on the livelihoods and incomes of our people. Right Honorable Speaker, I go straight to page 6. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, on gender and equity compliance, all the votes under the program scored above the threshold of 50% as indicated in the report. Right Honorable Speaker, the overall program budget is projected to decline by 21.6% from Uganda shillings 1,813.9 billion as approved in financial year 2023-2024 to Uganda shillings 1,288.2 billion in financial year 2024-2025 as indicated in table 2 on page 7. Right Honorable Speaker, that table 2 shows a budget allocation to the program for financial year 2024-2025. And specifically for agro-industrialization program, the budget will decline as indicated, as I have already said. And Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, compared to what was passed in the National Budget Framework paper, the projected budget is projected to reduce by 1.4%, that is Uganda shillings 22.3 billion, mainly on account of 11.9% reduction in external financing component from Uganda shillings 837.3 billion, approved in budget framework paper, to 737.3 billion as projected in the budget estimate. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, compared with the overall national budget, agro-industrialization program is projected to share only 2.7% of the resources in financial year 2024-2025, down from what it was 3.6% in the approved budget for financial year 2023-2024. Additionally, the allocation to the program is 26% less than the NDP3 envisaged allocation of 2,193 billion. The continued underfunding, Right Honorable Speaker, of the program undermines government's commitment of 10% under the Malabo Declaration, to which Uganda is a signatory, and therefore deems the medium-term prospects of the program. Right Honorable Speaker, with your guidance, I now go straight to observations and recommendations. Right Honorable Speaker, on program budget performance for financial year 2023-2024, the program had an approved budget of 1.814 trillion. By December 2023, Uganda shillings 746 billion had been released, of which 526 billion was spent. The percentage of budget release stood at 41.1%, while the percentage of releases spent stood at 70.6%. The overall program external budget performance amounted to 29.82% and 56.78% in release and expenditure, respectively. Specifically, the expenditure on external financing for VOT 010, Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, was 26.2% and 64.7% in release, mainly due to the delay in the approval of the restructured plan on the enhancing national food security through increasing rice production in Uganda Project 1316 and the Uganda Climate Smart Agricultural Transformation Project 1786, which was programmed in the financial year 2023-2024, with an approved budget of 411.7 billion. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, the committee observed that whereas recurrent expenditures were generally well absorbed, domestic development and external financing lagged behind significantly, which indicates challenges in effectively utilizing resources, potentially hindering the program objectives. The committee recommends that a thorough review of project management practices and financial oversight to ensure optimal utilization of resources and timely project delivery be done. The committee also recommends that the implementation process of the delayed projects be expedited to ensure timely utilization of allocated funds and prevent further underspending. On the underfunding of the program, the committee observed that the agro-industrialization program is allocated only 2.7% of the total national budget in this financial year 2024-2025, down from 3.6% in the approved budget for financial year 2023-2024. I had already talked about this, Right Honorable Speaker. Moreover, over 45.5% of this program budget is through external financing in form of loan projects. This form of financing is not reliable and it in many cases performs very low, way below the planned budget in releases and the expenditure due to very stringent conditions attached. Recommendations by the committee. Government should raise the budget of agro-industrialization program from the current 2.7% to a minimum of 10% as per the 2013 Malabo Declaration, to which Uganda is a signatory. The committee also recommends that the funding for the program should be strategically shifted from the unreliable external financing, as has been the case over time, to Government of Uganda financing for the stability of the program. On pest, vector, and disease control, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, the committee observed that there is persistent outbreaks of pest, vector, and diseases, especially foot and mouth disease. Many members have always raised this issue as a matter of concern, but with the minimal budgets to address the problem. In the current year, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, many of the districts within and outside the cattle corridor have had an escalating outbreaks of foot and mouth disease and PPR, that is a disease of small ruminants, goats and so forth, which has affected the animal market both domestically and internationally. More so, the crop sector's production and productivity is not spared with the persistent incidences of pests and diseases in the major crops like coffee and cotton. The Ministry of Agriculture requires 769.12 for the purchase of foot and mouth disease vaccines and vaccine cold chain equipment for biannual vaccination of the 44 million animals at risk. But only 11 billion has been availed in the budget. We stand a risk of losing all the livestock population in the country. Furthermore, Right Honorable Speaker, Uganda shillings 15.1 billion is required for the purchase of pesticides, spray pumps, and other assorted equipment for control of crop pests and diseases, but only 1.5 billion has been budgeted for. The ministry also requires 10 billion for the purchase of assorted laboratory reagents, consumables, and supplies for control for animal diseases, but only 7.2 billion has been provided. Recommendations by the committee. The committee recommends the funding gap of 758.12 billion required to address the issue of foot and mouth disease be provided to restore the integrity of the animal subsector in the country. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members. The committee also recommends that 13.6 billion be provided for pesticides and associated assorted equipment for control of crop pests and diseases. And also that 2.48 billion be provided for the purchase of assorted laboratory reagents, consumables, and supplies for control for animal diseases. On agricultural mechanization, Right Honorable Speaker, specifically purchase of tractors and implements, the committee is cognizant of the strategic direction that the country has purpose to take towards mechanization of agriculture to improve production and productivity and unlock the potential of the sector in its bid to catch up with its peers. Though Uganda is endowed with over 44% of arable land, less than 34.4% of this is under agricultural use. That is according to UBOS 2020, leaving 63.6% of it unutilized. The committee notes that this can be improved through mechanization, but inadequate funds have been invested by over the past years towards this cause. Thus, little as MAIF has been procuring tractors of different types over the past few years, but due to limited numbers availed over the years, the effect has remained minimal. The committee observed that in financial year 2024-2025, MAIF requires 282 billion for the procurement of 2,000 four-wheel tractors with the matching implements. And those are planters, hallers, harrows, trailers, plows, reapers, rotavators, as a step towards availing a tractor per sub-county. But only 23 billion is available in the MTEF. Furthermore, Right Honorable Speaker, MAIF requires additional 100 billion to procure and distribute 4,000 power tillers. Those are the walk beyond tractors that were recently given to some regions. And this is targeting every sub-county of the country. Right Honorable Speaker, no allocation has been made on this, and the farmers continue to cry for these tractors. The committee recommends that government should deliberately invest in the mechanization agenda to unlock the full potential of the agricultural sector. And the committee recommends that 259 billion be provided for procurement and deployment of 2,000 tractors and implement units to be distributed countrywide. The committee also recommends that 100 billion be allocated towards purchase of 4,000 power tillers. Those are walk-behind tractors of 14 horsepower with assorted implements. Agricultural mechanization centers. The committee observes that over time, agricultural mechanization has been staggering with the performance in line with the development projects. There is need, therefore, to establish and construct more centers, but prior to that, it is pertinent to maintain, equip, and manage the existing centers to full operational standards and capacity to be able to invest and support farmers with appropriate technology for mechanization across the value chain. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, the current 7 regional mechanization centers, which are central to this investment, have inadequate infrastructure, equipment, and staff, while some centers are battling with encroachers. The committee had a visit to all these 7 regional mechanization centers. The committee observed that MAIF requires 132 billion for construction of regional mechanization centers, access, deployment, maintenance, and repair of equipment, as well as recruitment and training of staff to operate machines and run these centers. Only 70 billion is available in the MTEF. The committee recommends that priority be given to the already existing mechanization centers by recruiting enough staff, providing sufficient equipment, and when they are fully operational, the other remaining centers, which are 11, can be embarked on. The committee also recommends that the ministry formulates and presents before Parliament a national mechanization strategy and equipment management and utilization policy in the next financial year. The committee also recommends that the funding gap of 62 billion be provided for construction, equipping, staffing, and maintenance of the regional mechanization centers. Rollout of the e-extension system. Right Honorable Speaker, government projects economic growth over the medium term to an average 7%, anchored on anticipated boosts in agriculture and manufacturing production and productivity. One of the strategies under agriculture is strengthening public extension system, but this is not matched by budget provision. The ministry developed and intends to roll out the e-extension systems for real-time information sharing and monitoring of extension services delivery in districts across the country, which requires 8 billion, but only 1.5 billion is in the projected budget. The committee notes that there is more than ever before need for effective extension services, especially now as we are implementing the parish development model to guide farmers on the best practices in order to efficiently benefit from the program. The committee recommends that the shortfall of 6.5 billion required for the rollout of the e-extension systems across the country be provided. The committee further recommends that where extension workers are being deployed, a study needs to be done to assess their impact on agricultural activities in those areas so that corrective actions can be taken where necessary. on water for production, for agricultural production, Right Honorable Speaker, the country is increasingly facing a major challenge of prolonged droughts.
Honorable Guang, as you get out, you have a report to present tomorrow. Something came up while you are away. The first thing at 10 will be your report.
Right Honorable Speaker, MAIF requires 114 billion for construction, rehabilitation of water harvesting facilities, but only 5.5 billion has been budgeted for, leaving a funding gap of 108.5 billion. The committee recommends that the funding gap of 108.5 billion be allocated towards this activity. The fisheries subsector. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, the committee notes that fish is one of the high-value commodities that contribute to economic growth in Uganda, contributing 3% to the national GDP and 12% to the agricultural sector GDP, and employing between 1.5 and 2 million Ugandans along the entire value chain. The committee observed that the subsector remains underfunded despite its strategic importance. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, MAIF requires 17 billion to support fishing communities with the critical inputs, fish feed, fingerlings, and appropriate fishing gear. Those are fishing nets and boat hinges, and assorted value addition equipment, but only 1.5 is available for this activity. Furthermore, Uganda shillings 13 billion is required for the establishment of fish ponds and aquaculture parks, with the focus on youth and women and aquaculture cooperatives and groups, but only 5 billion has been provided. Additionally, 7 billion is required for inspection, surveillance, and enforcement of fishery standards facilitated, and inspectors provided with the tools and equipment for inspection. Only 4 billion has been budgeted for. The committee recommends that 15.5 billion required to support fishing communities with the critical inputs, appropriate fishing gear, and assorted value addition equipment be provided. The committee also recommends that 8 billion required for the establishment of fish ponds and aquaculture parks be provided. The committee recommends 3 billion required for inspection, surveillance, and enforcement of fishery standards and provision of tools and equipment to inspectors be provided. Right Honorable Speaker, on the performance of externally funded projects, National Oil Palm Project, the background is there, and the recommendation by the committee is that Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development should avail the required funds for land acquisition to support project activities. The committee also recommends that MAIF should enhance project monitoring mechanisms and streamline administrative processes to expedite the absorption of funds and minimize delays in implementation. Another project is enhancing national food security through increased rice production project. The details are there captured in the report, and the recommendation by the committee is that Ministry of Finance avails the necessary funds to facilitate compensation of PAPs and dam construction completion. The committee also recommends that for any future projects, contracting of civil works should only be made after all the project affected persons have been fully compensated to enable smooth execution of Civil Works, National Oil Seeds Project. The narrative is there, Right Honorable Speaker. I am happy that honorable colleagues like reading, they'll read through, and the committee recommended that MAIF expedites project activities to meet the stipulated timelines and also ensure efficient utilization of allocated funds. The committee also recommends that MAIF should conduct a thorough review of project design and cost estimates to incorporate adjustments for increased material costs. On post-harvest handling and storage, Right Honorable Speaker, the committee notes that improving post-handling and storage of agricultural products is one of the major objectives of agro-industrialization, but less investment has been done in this area. The committee recommends that government prioritizes establishing regional and sub-regional storage facilities, silos, to support farmers in improving the quantity and quality of their products. We have just debated the challenges of mycotoxin, and I think it is timely that we take up this recommendation. The committee also recommends that government should adopt the NDP 3 midterm recommendation of allocating close to 170 billion towards storage, agro-processing, and value addition for improved handling and storage of agricultural products. The committee further recommends government should listen. Government should explore the possibility of establishing storage facilities at sub-county level in a phased manner to support PDM. Agricultural sector financing, Right Honorable Speaker, the committee observed that in October 2022, we resolved to establish an agricultural bank, but little is known about the progress by government towards this resolution. The committee recommends that government should report on the progress towards the formation of this bank and commit to timelines for the finalization of this establishment. The committee also recommends Ministry of Finance to fast-track the finalization of agricultural financing policy. On vote 121, Dairy Development Authority, inspection, certification, and quality assurance for market competitiveness. Right Honorable Speaker, the committee is informed that upon Uganda securing the Algerian market, estimated at $500 million annually for dairy products, follow-up inspectors visited various dairy installations, but a lot of gaps were discovered. Dairy Development Authority requires $3.6 billion to conduct regular inspections, enforcement, and milk testing for safety and market access in a bid to fix those gaps, but only $1.914 billion has been provided. DDA also requires $1 billion to support commercial dairy farmers for production and demonstration in each milk shed. The committee recommends that in a bid to fully secure the Algerian market, DDA should endeavor to close all the gaps talked about above. $1.6 billion is required for regular enforcement and milk testing for safety and market access, and the committee recommends it be provided. The committee also recommends that DDA that sufficient milk volumes are available so that even the Algerian markets, with the Algerian markets, enough is still available for domestic consumption. The committee recommends $1 billion be provided to support commercial dairy farmers for production and demonstration in each milk shed. On Mbale Milk Factory, Phase 2, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, this factory was already developed under Phase 1, but the work has stalled due to lack of funding. It is supposed to go on to Phase 2 in financial year 2024-2025. The phase requires an additional 3.44 billion. Furthermore, DDA has more milk collection centers that are dilapidated and are in a sorry state. They were inherited from dairy corporation, and they require additional 12.4 billion. The committee recommends, for purposes of continuity of the Mbale milk factory for Eastern Uganda, 3.44 billion be availed in the current budget projections. The committee also recommends 12.4 billion required for rehabilitation of milk collection centers countrywide be provided, and milk producing areas where there are no facilities to manage milk collection be planned for by DDA in a bid to boost milk production. Entebbe Dairies Training School requires 5 billion to rehabilitate and expand it to a regional dairy and trading incubation college of East Africa. The committee recommends that the 5 billion be allocated to authority for this activity. Support to roll out of the school milk program. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, DDA in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Sports and NV had already started on this program, and it worked very well in southwestern Uganda milk shed. This is intended to improve child nutrition, stabilize domestic milk prices, and widen the milk market. DDA requires 4 billion to roll out this program countrywide, prioritizing areas like Karamoja and other parts of the country where there's acute malnutrition. The committee recommends that 4 billion be provided for this activity.
Chair, try to summarize.
Vote 125, Right Honorable Speaker, most obliged. Inadequate funds for capital development for NAGRIC and DB. The committee notes that NAGRIC is sometimes even diverted from their original mandate to handle other issues. At one time, they were told to go for food security. Recently, they were diverted to handle the issues of Balalo. The committee recommends that government provides steady capital development of 100 billion for the next 5 years to enable the agency carry out its initial capital investment for a takeoff. The committee also recommends that government ensures agencies stick to their core mandates to avoid executing tasks outside their mandate. Breeding activities countrywide. Revamping of Iri Ranch in Napak district in a first manner in 3 years, and such is replicated to all unprivileged regions in the country. The committee also recommends in financial year 2024-2025 be provided to kickstart revamping Iri Ranch in Napak district. And then 15.8 billion be provided for transforming Ruengere and Sanga ranches into dairy farms, but one of the ranches should be reserved for the local breeds. The committee also recommends 25 billion for Gotapoyo Ranch, 2 billion for construction and completion of hatcheries in Bukedi, Tororo, Karamoja, Abim districts, and 54 billion be provided to establish animal feed processing plants in Aswa, Maruzi, and Nshara ranches. Community breeding services to support PDM. This is required.
Chair, I want you to give all those unfunded priorities to the budget committee under Rule 1492. You will not mention all of them. That's why you're a member of the budget committee. You're going to do the harmonization in the committee.
Most obliged, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, we made recommendations also on vote 152, National Animal Advisory Services. And I request you, Speaker, to allow me to talk about this, because members have always raised issues of food insecurity in the country.
NADS, eh?
Yes,
The one which is being repealed tomorrow.
yes, the one who has been giving seeds.
Okay.
Right, Honorable Speaker, the committee recommends 12 billion for strategic commodities that are lined up there in that order, and 6 billion be provided for apples, 3 billion for grapes. Right, Honorable Speaker, what I want to talk about is other unfunded priorities under NADS. The committee recommends a total of 72.7 billion be provided to NADS for the implementation of the activities below. I want specifically to talk about the 40 billion for maize and bean seeds. Right, Honorable Speaker, we have always been recommending these monies, but at the tail end of the budget, it disappears. Right, Honorable Speaker, the way we have planned for these monies, we have made calculations, we support the PDM. But according to the arrangement of the PDM, there is no poor person among the 39% who will go and buy seeds and go and plant. All are buying mukene to sell to increase their monies, leaving the whole population starving. So out of the 46, Right Honorable Speaker, the calculation is that 38 billion provides 10,000 kilograms of bean seeds and 20,000 kilograms of maize seeds to every district. To every district to plant. That is for the 2 seasons. Then the 8 billion, Right Honorable Speaker, is to address the headache you have always been having, so that the leaders can have a remedial arrangement where they also take seeds to cover the gaps, where the other 38 billion cannot handle. Right, Honorable Speaker, the 8 billion is meant for the 2 seasons. Right, Honorable Speaker, and that should start the next season. Right, Honorable Speaker, I also wanted to remind you the commitment by the Ministry of Finance. While the Deputy Chair...
We still have that commitment.
Yes.
And the rains.
And they are here.
Yes.
So, Right Honorable Speaker, for this planting season, Ministry of Finance is the one to respond to those concerns. Right, Honorable Speaker, for coffee, there is outstanding areas of 4.9 billion, which is required.
And the coffee farmers are the gate.
They are the gate. UCDA cannot work all the time. All the coffee nursery operators come at UCDA. Some of the nursery operators no longer take their children to school. Others have even lost property. So we need to take this as a very serious matter, Honorable colleague.
Thank you.
In summary, and finally, Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, there is vote on cotton, the cotton that our men and women in uniform use is our cotton. When you see them sit in this house smart, that is our cotton. We don't import, but it is underfunded.
Madam Alayo, you look smart.
That is our cotton, Uganda prisons, Uganda police, UPDF, Uganda Wildlife Authority. If you visit the factory in Bugolobi, you will believe what I am saying, but they are underfunded. That one, we shall debate it in the budget committee. And colleagues, I request you really for your support. This is a sector which feeds the community, and I'm even sure immediately the Right Honorable Speaker gives us a break, we are going to partake of the products of this sector, which is underfunded.
Thank you.
In conclusion, In conclusion, honorable colleagues, Right Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you so much. And I want to thank the committee for processing this report. But the sector which feeds and which is the backbone of the economy is grossly underfunded. When you see the ministers of agriculture grow thin, it is because of the challenges that they are facing. So I thank you.
Thank you.
I want to present Right
Honorable members. Honorable members, this is a very exhaustive report, and it raises all the issues, including FMD. Uganda is an agricultural country. It's a backbone of agriculture. And how I request that, because all what is being raised is pertinent, when you go to the Committee of Budget must take this as a priority. These issues of agriculture must be taken as a priority. There is no need to debate anything on this. This is a priority area. I now put a question at the report of the Committee of Agriculture, Animal Industry, Fisheries, Ministerial Statement for the budget estimate 2024-2025 be adopted by this House. Those in favor say and contrary. The ayes have it. And I am telling you, this is a priority in this country, and it must be considered. I want to welcome honorable members. Honorable members. Who is shouting procedure? Honorable members, in the public gallery this afternoon, we have teachers and students from Musana Vocational School, from Kigulu South constituency, and are represented by Honorable Moma Milton, and you're most welcome. Join me in receiving them. And Honorable Sauda, you're most welcome. They're here to observe the proceedings. Also join me in welcoming the Deputy Speaker, who has come to observe and act as a relief.
Next item.
The Committee on Gender, Labor and Social Development.
Chair.
Gender, Labor and Social Development.
Is the chair ready?
Gender, Labor and Social Development.
If it's not ready, next.
The Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industry.
Chair.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay on table the minutes of the meetings for the Committee of Tourism, Trade and Industry on consideration of the Ministerial Policy Statement. I beg to lay. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay a copy of the report of the Sectoral Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industry on the Ministerial Policy Statement and budget estimates for the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife, Antiquities, and the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives for the financial year 2024-2025. I beg to lay, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Right Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, we have the report on the system, so you don't need to read verbatim word for word, but we shall capture it on the answer.
I now proceed, Right Honorable Speaker, to present the report of the Committee of Trade, Tourism and Industry, Sector of Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industry on the Ministerial Policy Statement, the budget estimates for the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, and the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives for the financial year 2024-2025, according with the rules of procedure of this House, Right Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to move straight away. Page 3 is on introduction and methodology. I move to page 5, Mr. Speaker, On page 5, the Tourism Development Program, which consists of 2 votes, Mr. Speaker, sir. Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife, Antiquities, votes 0 to 2, and subventions under them, Uganda Wildlife Authority, Uganda Hotel Tourism Training Institute, Uganda Wildlife Education Center, Uganda Wildlife Research Training Institute, Mr. Speaker, sir, are the subventions. Then, Mr. Speaker, sir, under tourism, I request members that we move ahead because of time. Page 6 is the overview of the semi-annual budget performance. Then key performance indicators on page 8. Mr. Speaker, sir, I request members that we move to page 15 on budget allocation for Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife, Antiquities, and its subventions, financial year 2024-2025, Mr. Speaker, sir. On page 15. Right, Honorable Speaker and Honorable colleagues, the overall budget allocation is presented in the table 5. I hope members will be able to read. And the overall budget allocation for the ministry and its subvention is proposed to reduce by Uganda shillings 43.825 billion from Uganda shillings 221.568 billion. That was approved, Mr. Speaker, in financial year 2023-2024 to Uganda shillings 174.743 billion. That is proposed for this financial year. The other one was for the past financial year. Right, Honorable Speaker, on page 16, table 6, honorable members can look through. Table 6 talks about the non-tax revenue trend and projections of the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife, Antiquities, the agencies, Mr. Speaker, sir. From the above, the non-tax revenue from the Tourism Development Program is on an upward trajectory, indicating a steady recovery from the pandemic period of financial year 2024-2025, Mr. Speaker, as indicated in the report that members will look through. Then the planned activities. Mr. Speaker, sir, because of time, I request members that we go to page 24, page 20. Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center has been allocated 16,498 million, Mr. Speaker, sir. And page 21, Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute is allocated 7.731 billion, Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable colleagues. And on page 22, Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute has been allocated 5.485 billion shillings, right, honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues. Mr. Speaker, sir, on page 24, that is Board 117, Uganda Tourism Board, Mr. Speaker, sir. Table 7, on page 24, members can look through that table, UTB semi-annual budget performance, which I'm not going to read. Because of time, honorable Speaker, I request members that we move to page 29 on vote of UTB proposed budget allocation. Honorable Speaker, the budget of Uganda Tourism Board is proposed to increase by Uganda shillings 0.30 billion. This is on account of the proposed increment in wage to cater for planned recruitment of 5 staffs in UTB, right, honorable Speaker. And same page 29, right, honorable Speaker, the planned activities for UTB for 2024 and 2025 financial year, which has been allocated 27.627 billion, right, honorable Speaker. And right, honorable Speaker, I now proceed to the recommendations, observations, and recommendations, which starts from page 32. Right, honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues, the committee observed that Section 83 of the Wildlife Act 2019 requires OA to establish the Wildlife Compensation Scheme, which contains 2% levy on non-tax revenue collections made by OA to settle human-wildlife conflicts compensation claims. The committee has since established that the 2% levy has been inadequate to cater for compensations for the increasing number of human-wildlife conflicts, including destruction of properties and lives. Right, honorable Speaker and colleagues, the committee recommends that the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities should, by statutory instrument, amend the OA Regulation 2022 number 65 to increase the percentage levy from 2% to at least 5% on non-tax revenues collected by OA for purposes of strengthening the wildlife compensation scheme. This is because the circumstance of human-wildlife conflicts have increased and harmony of the same is paramount, right, honorable Speaker and colleagues. Uganda Wildlife Authority, the committee established that NDP3 targets to keep human-wildlife conflict within 1,160 incidences cumulative. However, the conflict have increased by 796 incidences from 6,999 reported in financial year 2022-2023 to 7,795 incidences reported by the end of the first half of financial year 2023-2024, right, honorable Speaker. Increased human conflict has had a negative impact on conservation, education, and awareness since it breeds unfriendly relationship between wildlife and human beings. Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee was informed that OA, Uganda Wildlife Authority, was informed by OA of $1.34 billion of budget support that OA is to receive from the World Bank to procure an electric fence that is to be erected on an 80-kilometer long boundary distance as mechanism of reducing human-wildlife conflict around Machishon Falls National Park. The committee was further informed by OA of an additional budget allocation of Uganda shillings 5.04 billion from government of Uganda to procure an electric fence to fence of some parts of the Machishon Falls National Park that could potentially breed human-wildlife conflict. Honorable Speaker and colleagues, the committee observed that whereas electric fencing required colossal sums of money and other resources, this should not lead to budget duplication. The committee observed that there were variations in budget lines from allocations made by government of Uganda and the off-budget support from the World Bank, both targeting addressing human-wildlife conflict in the same area, Machishon Falls. The committee further observed that the off-budget of $1.34 million from the World Bank was not included in the ministerial policy statement by the ministry for the financial year 2024-2025, right, honorable Speaker, as external finance for parliamentary appropriation. This poses risk of potential duplication of budgets. Right, honorable Speaker, the committee observed on raising the budget ceiling for OA that over time, UA has demonstrated capacity to collect its projected non-tax revenue. In the financial 2022-2023, UA collected 128.975 million and made a surplus of 34 billion. A surplus of 34 billion currently saved on its wildlife fund. In the financial 2024-2025, Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, UA has been allocated 81.433 billion as proposed in this ministerial policy statement. Yet it has projected to collect 182.36 billion in addition to the non-tax revenue surplus saved from financial 2022-2023. With Uganda shillings 81.43 billion, UA will only cover wage-related expenses for its 3,200 staff. UA spends 62.2 billion on wage, gratuity, NSF, and medical. The outstanding balance will cover part of the fixed operation cost, Right Honourable Speaker. The committee notes that whereas UA spends at source in line with the Uganda Wildlife Act 2019, its expenditure must be within the appropriated setting. We therefore recommend as a committee that Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities should incorporate all expected external finance in its annual budget proposal for consideration and final appropriation by Parliament. The committee further recommends that government should raise budget ceiling for Uganda Wildlife Authority to Uganda shillings 167.36 billion to allow for utilization of funds internally generated by UA and access to funds already saved as surplus on the Wildlife Fund, Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues. On page 35, redistribution of UA non-tax revenue. The committee observed that UA non-tax revenue realized Uganda shillings 34 billion surplus, which was saved on the Wildlife Fund. The committee is cognizant of the fact that tourism development agencies have a symbiotic relationship with UA, and there is need to support other entities within the program that have critical and funded priorities. We therefore recommend, Right Honourable Speaker, that Uganda shillings 15 billion should be internally reallocated from UA Wildlife Authority to cater for unfunded priorities at UWEC, Uganda Wildlife Research Training Institute, and UTB as per the reallocation table 9 and 10. Then Uganda Wildlife Education Center, the committee noted that UWEC presented a proposal to increase the population of lions in national game parks through breeding. Consequently, a budgeted proposal of 7 billion for in-situ lion breeding with a targeted output of only 16 lions to be bred in a year was presented. The committee, however, Honourable Speaker, observed that whereas the proposal is quite innovative, the proposed return on investment was low. Right Honourable Speaker, the committee further noted that both UA and UWEC submitted budgets for environmental impact assessment that cost 280 million Uganda shillings and 500 million respectively for lion breeding. The committee, however, observed that it was UWEC alone that had the mandate of breeding lions within the vicinities managed by UA. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, we recommend that UWEC should review its feasibility study and conduct benchmarks on the return on investment on in-situ lion breeding and present it for recommendation during the next budget cycle for financial year 2025-2026. Additionally, we recommend that UWEC and UA should harmonize their mandates regarding lion breeding in national game parks and protected areas. Right Honourable Speaker, on page 36, 4.4, Uganda Hotel Tourism Training Institute. The committee observed that UHTTI made a total collection of 2.8 billion as non-tax revenue and retained the same on its revenue account. The committee further observed that UHTTI has been spending funds at source, contrary to the Section 29 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015. During the meeting of the committee held on Thursday, 21st March, Right Honourable Speaker, the principal of UHTTI informed the committee that the institute received authorization from the Permanent Secretary and Secretary to the Treasury to spend funds at source. He tabled a letter dated 13th January 2023, authored by the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquity, requesting the PSST for supplementary budget of 3.8 billion for emergency reallocation of UHTTI to rented premises and establishment of students' accommodation facilities. The committee, however, did not receive evidence of an instrument from the PSST authorizing the principal of UHTT to spend at source. The committee observed that this institution illegally held funds on its revenue account beyond one financial year without remitting to the same and the same to the consolidated fund. The committee was privy to the information that management abused its authority by allowing insider borrowing of money that culminated in a total loan portfolio of Uganda shillings 472 million for the period July 2022 to March 2024. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, the committee further observed that this institution was engaged in insider borrowing on page 37 without authorization from any lawful authority. It is straight law, Right Honourable Speaker, that the mandate of borrowing and lending money is a preserve of government. Article 159 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda provides that the power to borrow and lend money is for the government. Further, Section 36 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015, Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, provides for authority to raise loans. It specifically provides that on page 37 provides as elaborated in the statement of the committee, Right Honourable Speaker. The committee recommends that UHTTI should desist from the abstract, irregular, and illegal act of insider borrowing as it contravenes Article 159 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, Section 3645 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, the committee further recommends that the Directorate of Public Prosecution should investigate the actions of the Board of Directors and the principal of UHTTI for actions of insider borrowing from the revenue account of the institute. Right Honourable Speaker, on page 38, Uganda Wildlife Research Training Institute, which is a subvention, the committee observed that the performance of this institute since its inception in terms of publication of wildlife research findings fell below average, and neither does it depict the name of the institute not justify the annual budgetary allocation made. The committee was informed by the Minister that the poor performance of this institution would be attributed to low staffing levels in the research division of the Uganda Wildlife Research Training Institute due to limited budget allocation to the institute. The committee was further informed that the institute has gone through restructuring exercise by the Ministry of Public Service, which will position it as a center of excellence in wildlife research. However, this will require additional 8 billion to run the research institute. We therefore recommend that government should provide additional 8 billion shillings to implement the newly approved structure of this institution. Right Honourable Speaker, on UTB, the committee observed that NDP3 targeted to cumulatively attract 281,760 international tourist arrivals from US, Europe, and China, but only 67,252 arrivals were registered by the end of the financial year 2023-2024. Right Honourable Speaker, the committee was informed that US, Europe, and China were key target source for leisure tourists who stay longer than business tourists. However, statistics show that in international arrivals from the aforementioned areas have continued to drop. The committee was informed that UTB requires 4 billion to engage international and national media. Right Honourable Speaker, for production of positive tourism stories to improve destination perception in light of recent controversies that shed the destination in a bad light. However, this has remained unfunded. We recommend that government should provide 4 billion to UTB to engage in international and national media houses in production and positive media stories for improved destination image. Right Honourable Speaker, page 39, proposed reallocation. The committee identified 22.404 billion from within the tourism development program and reallocated it to key priority areas within the program. The table below shows table 9, as I mentioned on page 39, source of funds identified for reallocation. That moves to page 40, and the committee observed that the tourism development program entities are grossly unfunded. The committee was presented with several unfunded priorities. However, the following are considered very critical and should be provided for within the financial year 2024-2025. And the next table on page 41, right Honourable Speaker, table 10, presents destination of identified resources where the committee reallocated this fund to the total tune of, right Honourable Speaker, the total tune of 22,405 million, right Honourable Speaker. I hope members will be able to read on page 41. Right Honourable Speaker, the next sector, trade and industry sector. Mr. Speaker, sir, these are as under trade, we have Board 015, which is the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, then Board 136, Uganda Export Promotion Board, and Board 154, Uganda National Bureau of Standards. Mr. Speaker, sir, I request members that we move on to page 45, presents the proposed budget allocations for the financial year 2024-2025. Table 12, I hope members will be able to read through. I'll just give a summary. Financial year 2024-2025, the ministry has been allocated 2.9 billion for financing its wage and 101.21 billion for non-wage recurrent expenditures. The budget for development domestic stands at Uganda shillings 11.16 billion. The total budget has dropped by 54.725 billion from Uganda shillings 169.99 billion to Uganda shillings 115.27 billion. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, the reduction is largely attributed to one-off supplementary budgets to Uganda UWRSA to the tune of 2 billion, then Ministry of Trade to the tune of 3 billion, then UDC to the tune of 50.4 billion. That was a one-off expenditure that led to that big margin of reduction in the total budget of the ministry, right Honourable Speaker. The planned activities for the ministry is on page 46, right Honourable Speaker, coming down to page 51. I request members that we move to page 54, which talks about Uganda Export Promotion Board. Right Honourable Speaker, Uganda Export Promotion Board is another board on its own, Board 136. And when you look through on page 54, it presents the semi-annual budget performance. Then on page 54, it presents the proposed budget for the financial 2024-2025. The overall budget for the Export Promotion Board, right Honourable Speaker,